Hi, I'm Richard from GateSafe. I'm here with Rob Williams, our Technical and Training Manager. Today we're going to talk about barriers. Although we're called GateSafe, we're interested in the safety associated with any entrance to a property, and that obviously includes barriers. We'll be discussing the way they're used, the types of operator, and the safety devices associated with those. On the subject of barriers then, Rob, why do you think people choose a barrier?
I think there are many reasons why people choose barriers over gates. Firstly, they're relatively inexpensive compared to a gate system. Also, they do take up less space and, of course, have a quicker operational speed as well.
In my view, really, barriers are only for traffic control and should never be used to replace a gate if you want security or safety in terms of keeping people in or out.
I agree. There is a bit of a misconception that because barriers are not for pedestrians, therefore people think that they don't need to make them safe. Now, because they are pieces of machinery, we need to look at risk assessing against any foreseeable misuse. And of course, it's very easy for people to make contact with barriers and therefore get hurt by them.
Absolutely, and the action of the barrier is one that causes problems, because if you're walking through a roadway, you're not going to be looking above your head to see if something's about to come down on you.
Yes, the humans have evolved to actually look for danger on the ground rather than from above. I'm sure we've all seen enough videos online of people getting hit by barriers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, Richard, I think it's really important that people actually take into consideration the actual operation of the barrier. Now, traditionally, most barriers tend to be in fully automatic mode, where a signal is given, the barrier goes up, it stays open for however long it's programmed to, and then times out and comes down again, making it a class 3 automated barrier. But do remember there are other types of operation that we can use, such as hold to run, where a person in the vicinity of the barrier actually takes on responsibility for the movement of the barrier by holding a button down to make it move.
Very often those sort of situations are covered with traffic lights to ensure people don't try and sneak through when they shouldn't, or stop when they should.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And also with a hold to run or dead man's operation, the person does need to be in full view in a fixed position for the barrier.
Yeah. One of the other things that is quite good to see now, though, barriers are increasingly having photocells in between them, but unfortunately not covering the full area of risk, just in between the barrier rather than protecting the arm.
Yeah, I see it a lot where people put a pair of photocells underneath the barrier arm across the road, then have an induction loop into the ground and think that's all they need to do about making it safe. Unfortunately, loops are really just glorified metal detectors and they're not going to pick up on people.
No, and a lot of installation companies still have it in their mind it's a safety device in terms of the barrier, don't they?
Yeah, they're not actually classed as a safety device because they don't work on people.
The other areas that you've got which people miss are the pivot points around the arm and the actual catch post. So if you are going to place photocells, really they need to be outboard of the areas of risks.
Yes, I agree. Also, do remember that we can actually protect against crushing by fitting a safety edge on a barrier arm. However, I would always say to people, please make sure that the edge profile is deep enough to offer the absorption. Now, a barrier does move at quite high speed, so therefore the arm has got a lot more momentum in it and will need more absorption in the edge to be effective. And of course, GateSafe priority is always non-contact safety.
Yeah, absolutely should be. The design has got to be the first consideration, non-contact second, and then contact as a last resort.
Yes, and do remember that it's not just the barrier arm that can present the danger. We have various shearing and crushing points as the arm goes around the barrier cabinet, counterweights swinging down past, and of course we do have a defined crushing risk as the arm goes into a tip support as well.
Yeah. And in terms of the barriers, most commonly they're the single arm. But what are your thoughts on skirted barriers?
Skirted barriers do concern me. There is unfortunately a horrible risk of hanging where somebody could get their head or part of their body through the skirt. And if their barrier was to have an open signal, they'll be going up in the air. I do feel as well that skirts really are not the best option on barriers. I like to ask people, well, why do you want a skirt on your barrier? And often the answer to that is either to keep pedestrians out or indeed to make them more visible. Firstly, going back to the whole problem of keeping people out, is really a barrier the best option then? You'd be much better off with a set of gates. And also, as far as visibility goes, have you seen how good boom lighting is nowadays? The technology really has moved on.
Absolutely brilliant. The other area, just worthy of note, is we talk about the barrier hitting people on the way down, but as with the gate, it's just the same risk whether it's opening or closing. So you've got to protect both risks, not just one of them.
Yes, I see this a lot, especially in underground car parks with articulated arm barriers, where to maximise the road clearance, the barrier is actually mounted very close to the wall. And of course, that presents a very powerful crushing risk as the thing opens up.
Yeah. In one site I can think of, the actual positioning of the pay machines is leading to people walking past the barriers in an unsafe way. So it needs to be considered as part of the design of the gate in terms of pay and display.
Yes, I think it's very important to keep people away from barriers as much as possible with things like separate pedestrian segregation, keeping the access control away from the barrier so they're not being forced into its vicinity and therefore all the associated risks around it.
Absolutely.
Also, Richard, do remember that these things are actually classed as machines in the same way that any other type of gate is. So it is ultimately important that we make sure that they are risk assessed and made safe for use.
In your experience, Rob, what are you seeing as most common things where people are falling short on the installations?
I think the main thing is keeping people away from them. People quite often have a footpath running very close to the end of the barrier arm. And of course, they could be walking past the barrier with it coming down, potentially get hit by it.
So you'd have pedestrian segregation in the same way as you would with a gate?
Definitely. Probably more so because the risk, again, is coming up from above.
Yeah. And in the same way as with the gates, maintenance is a legal requirement. So you want the operator of the gate to do weekly checks just to make sure things are in place and clean, whatever. But you have a legal requirement to have a 6-monthly check on the barrier for the electronics, and that needs to be done by a professional.
Absolutely. It is absolutely imperative that whenever a safety device is fitted to a barrier, it is doing the job that we want to do. And of course, that can be verified by regular maintenance by a qualified expert person. So, Richard, do you often come across barriers in step-by-step operation? And what do you think about that?
I think probably a lot of the guardhouse situations are step-by-step, where the guard is saying, someone's here, I'll open the barrier for them. I don't think they fully appreciate what they're doing, and probably the safety hasn't been taken into account properly. If it is in step-by-step, it needs the same level of safety as if it's in fully automatic mode.
Yes, I agree. And I think there is a bit of confusion between step-by-step and hold to run. It is always important to remember that when hold to run is employed, the person is responsible for the barrier use, whereas with step-by-step, you do need the extra safety devices.
Yeah. And even with hold to run, we still think there ought to be a safety device because it's very easy to keep your finger on the button and turn around and talk to your colleague behind you.
I agree.
Thanks, Rob. I hope you found that useful. If you want any further information about gates or barriers, visit our website, gate-safe.org, or give us a call. Thank you.